Recently, there was an article on CBR.com talking about 10 modern comic book stories that aged poorly. And I think a couple of these are complete misunderstandings of what has actually aged poorly or why it has. Another one is just ranked really off. And here to talk to me about that is my good friend, Doc. How you doing, Doc?
I am spectacular, sir. And CBR, it's like the short bus of comic book news sites. They really can't even keep with their own premise on a lot of their own articles.
Yeah, because when you look at the list, almost everything didn't age poorly. Almost everything was dead the moment it arrived. We're talking like Batman the Wedding. Everyone hated it the moment it arrived. We're talking ultimatums on the list. No one thought that was a good idea at any moment, in any time whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, and you also had like X-Men Gold, which the outcry was literally the day it hit the shelf. So
people got fired for that one.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think they already changed the artist for issue 2 and 3. Like, that's how bad it was. To age poorly, it had to have at least been acceptable when it came out, if not, you know, kind of lauded. In a lot of these cases, most of these were just, they were DOA ideas in the first place. So
yeah, Scott Pilgrim should have been on this list.
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim is one that aged poorly when you look back at it now. There's only one on here that I think that actually did age poorly, and that was the Jared Fogle Justice League one. Because, well, no, I mean, it was a dumb idea at the time. It becomes a very terrible idea looking back at hindsight now.
Absolutely. So let's talk about a couple of these that I think are just absolute balderdash. Actually, one of them didn't age poorly, but wasn't liked immediately. But the reason they have for it is just absolutely stupid. The first one we'll talk about, coming in at number 9, The Ultimates represents the worst kind of patriotism. There's nothing inherently wrong with having strong feels of patriotism towards the United States or any country that one hails from. However, in the current state of social injustice commentary flooding the world that's overly critical of America, the Ultimate series that began in 2002 reads now, at worst, as pro-American while being anti-everyone else. This series is just extremely mean-spirited as a post-9/11 time capsule, highlighting a very paranoid, very angry, and overly patriotic period in America. Now, I have not read like the Ultimates this year, but I have read it recently, and I think it's brilliant. And I never got the feeling that it was a post-9/11 overly patriotic comic book whatsoever. I guess they're talking about the one scene where Captain America says, "What do you think the A on my head stands for?"
There wasn't really any overly anti everyone else, except for, you know, making fun of France. And honestly, making fun of France is a perfectly acceptable political position.
Making fun of France has been fine since I was 5 years old. I'm 45. It's been in vogue for 4 decades at least, probably longer, probably starting with World War II.
Going out of your way to really claim that this was some sort of anti everyone else, it's just anti-French. Come on. So maybe the author of the article's French and doesn't like that his...
Well, they're just a douchebag and they don't like comic books. And when I read it, and I like this version of Captain America, and I think it's a good version of Captain America, I never thought, wow, this is really, really patriotic. I just thought, this is a Captain America that isn't ashamed of his country and is proud of what he's done.
Yeah, exactly. That's who this Captain America was. He was a good bit more macho, a very staunch defender, not necessarily of America, but American ideals. He really went kind of out of his way to be kind of what was the best parts of America in a wartime setting. And the fact that you're looking back at it from a modern social injustice commentary, blah, blah, blah. Yes. Hey, guess what? When you look back at it now, anything that is pro-America didn't age well in the world we live in now, where apparently the only thing acceptable is to hate America.
Yeah, so I thought that one was really stupid. There are plenty of comic books that I've been told are really good, and I went back and read them, and I was like, I could see why people would like this, but it's not great. You know, it doesn't really stand the test of time. The Ultimates from Mark Miller and Brian Hitch absolutely stands the test of time. You can go and read that one today, and it still reads like an amazing comic book. There is a bit of bad characterization that I didn't think was all that great. And if this had been on the list because of what Hank Pym does to his wife, I would kind of agree with it because I thought it was a little bit too gross. But other than that, it's like perfect.
And honestly, there's a reason why it could still stand the test of time. the entire first phases 1 through 3 of bringing the Avengers together of the MCU is based almost completely on the Ultimates Volume 1. It does not age poorly. Sorry, CBR, you're just wrong on this one.
Yeah, that was a stupid. There's another one. The next one we'll talk about, which probably could be on the list because these aren't things that aged poorly. They were just bad the moment they came out. But the reason that they're explaining it is absolutely balderdash. Number 7, Sue Dibney, is another example of the women in refrigerators trope. The women in refrigerators trope dates back to a term coined by Gail Simone from her website of the same name to explain instances in comic books where a female character's trauma solely exists to drive the plot and motivate the hero. It originally referred to Alexandra DeWitt and her time with Green Lantern, but Sue Dibney is another key example. Identity Crisis by Brad Meltzer and Rags Morales was critically praised for its shocking depiction of morally gray superheroes, but it reads today with poor taste to see Dibney solely exist as a woman whose abuse and death drives the plot with little to no character or agency of her own. Identity Crisis sucks. Like, there's no way around that. When I went back and read it, I don't know that many people liked it, but the women in refrigerators trope is so played out. It's so lame. You have to motivate your hero. Sometimes that means that you have to take away a loved one. You have to put a loved one in danger. If it's a male hero, oftentimes, especially if it's a straight male hero, that is going to be his loved one. That's going to be his kid. Perhaps it's his mom or his Aunt May or something like this. And they do the exact same thing with female superheroes. Women in refrigerators, sure, it is a trope, but it dates back to like Homer and stuff like that. And it's not a bad thing. It's something that almost everyone can relate to. Someone that you love being in danger or losing someone that you love and having to get revenge for that. Those are reasons for heroes to be heroic and go out and do heroic things.
Yeah, you're correct. It's not a comic book trope. It is a storytelling trope that is timeless. Take away somebody that the main character that the protagonist loves and have them go on a revenge or seeking justice or blah, blah, blah. Literally every part of this is incorrect, considering that it was never, as you said, never critically lauded. Everybody was like, ooh, DC's doing another Crisis, and they stuck Identity Crisis in there thinking that it was going to be a new take on the Crisis thing, because we hadn't had a Crisis since Crisis on Infinite Earths. This came out, and then Infinite Crisis came out like a year afterwards to kind of fix a lot of the negative press that they got as the result of this story, because it ruined the Crisis name.
Like we mentioned at the beginning, this entire list, almost everything on here, was never critically lauded. It was a dud the moment that it came out. And the one exception that I would absolutely take the Ultimates off, because that is a very good comic book and it certainly has aged very well, especially if you do like the MCU. How could this be number 10? Captain America Steve Rogers aged poorly as soon as it dropped. The first issue of Captain America Steve Rogers by Nick Spencer and Jesus Saez suffered controversy the moment it hit shelves, all because of its final panel showcasing a suddenly turncoat Rogers uttering the words "Hail Hydra" as he's revealed as having been a sleeper agent this whole time. Many critics dismissed the turn as nonsensical. For such a pro-American symbol who punched Hitler in the face to then join a pseudo-Nazi organization, as well as disrespectful to the memories of Jack Kirby and Joe Simon, the two Jewish creators of Captain America who modeled the character after their backgrounds, the poor reaction led to a retcon citing Cap simply as being brainwashed. This made people stop buying comic books. It was that bad. It was grotesque. It was in such poor taste that Captain America could actually be a Hydra agent the whole time. This is like One More Day levels of absolute terribleness that came out in this comic book.
Excusing the fact that even their own description of why this is on the list shows why this shouldn't be on the list, because it didn't age poorly. It was as soon as it hit the shelves. They didn't do anything to make it better at any point either, or to write their way out of it. In fact, even their explanation here, the poor reaction led to a retcon citing Cap simply as being brainwashed. Yeah, they never did that. They doubled
cube. There's two Caps.
Yeah, they doubled down on it, and the Cap that was Cap at the beginning in this issue is still Hydra Cap in a cell somewhere. They never retconned it, and they never retconned brainwashing. In fact, the real Cap running around today is a construct of a cosmic cube. He's not even a real person that was ever born. Yeah, everything about this friggin' article is stupid, And this one should be at the top of the list because it did. It made people leave comics.
And what I do hope in the future, Doc, is when CBR has an article like this, they let someone that's actually read comic books edit the article and be like, you can't actually have that one on there because it didn't age poorly. It just sucked from the moment it came out. And actually get a decent list on here because there's 9 entries that certainly aren't very good. None of them aged poorly because they all sucked the moment they came out. And the Ultimates didn't age poorly. It's still one of the better comic books in modern history.
For an article on 10 things that aged poorly, you have 2 things from the Ultimates here, which is probably the best and most revered series of overall the last 2 decades. And they were both things that either nobody gave a shit about or were kind of like, we really don't like that, like the Twincest thing. Yeah.
Don't make excuses, Doc. Twincest is awful.
Yeah, I know. But even then, people, like, whenever they first started hinting at it, they're like, no. People still kind of rejected that, but they ignored it, and they still ended up putting out the thing that is the backbone of that MCU that CBR loves so much, at least phases 1 through 3. The rest of them were things that everybody rejected the minute they came out.
Ironically, Doc, the only thing that aged poorly in this article is the article itself.
Yeah, I mean, the article, well, no, the article doesn't age poorly because it sucks when it came out too.
Well, I guess you're right. Maybe I got it wrong too. It's too bad CBR can't even understand the constraints of their own article and create a good list. Fortunately for us, I can create a great list and actually stay within the confines of the list. In fact, one time with my good friend Comics by Perch, we talked about the 5 worst comic book heel turns of all times. If you haven't seen this video, definitely check it out right now. There's also a link in the video description.